In the late 1940s and early 1950s, the U.S. intelligence community was consumed by a specific, terrifying suspicion. They believed the Soviet Union and China had developed advanced chemical methods to manipulate the human mind and brainwash captured personnel. Facing what they viewed as an existential threat, American intelligence agencies concluded they needed a defensive program. To defeat these cognitive weapons, they first had to understand exactly how they worked. But understanding chemical interrogation isn't a theoretical exercise. You can't validate a mind-control drug or a truth serum in a petri dish. You need living, breathing human test subjects, and that created a severe legal barrier. Running experimental behavioral and chemical trials on unwitting American citizens was strictly illegal. To bypass the law, the government constructed a highly classified ghost network. They built a system of financial intermediaries and front organizations designed to keep Congress and the public completely in the dark. This strategy ensured that the research could proceed outside the reach of the U.S. legal system, stripping away the standard protections usually afforded to citizens under clinical study. The CIA organized this effort under a single cryptonym, MKUltra. Between 1953 and 1964, MKUltra operated as a shield for 149 distinct subprojects focused entirely on chemical behavioral modification. To hide their involvement, the agency relied on a financial mechanism called a cutout. The CIA routed the money through military branches, like the Navy and the Army, who then paid the private contractors. On paper, the CIA simply didn't exist in the transaction. This declassified proposal shows what that money bought: chemical agents effective in modifying the behavior and function of the central nervous system. Looking at the budget, for $42,700, contractors actively developed compounds to alter human consciousness. The CIA also laundered their objectives through legitimate scientific institutions, using entities like the Medical Sciences Research Foundation as front organizations to safely extract data on interrogation drugs from universities and hospitals. This 1967 military document shows how the operations evolved into MKSearch, which included specific projects like Often. The text plainly describes evaluating new chemical compounds through toxicological testing on animals and ultimately humans. This maze of military conduits and medical foundations achieved exactly what it was designed to do. The sheer complexity of the paper trail made it almost impossible to trace the experiments back to the intelligence community. While funding was abstracted behind paperwork, the physical experiments were painfully real, taking place at military installations like the Army's Edgewood Arsenal and Camp Detrick. In the late 1950s, researchers at Edgewood initiated a series of tests using the hallucinogen LSD, classified as EA-1729. They administered the drug to over 1,000 volunteer soldiers, putting them through simulated exercises to see how the chemical degraded combat effectiveness. But the intelligence community wanted something stronger. They shifted their focus toward finding an offensive knockout agent, a substance capable of inducing rapid, extreme incapacitation for covert operations. By 1971, under the MKOFTEN program, they found a promising candidate in a highly potent glycolate class chemical designated EA3167. To test the limits of EA3167, they applied the compound directly to the skin of volunteer soldiers at Edgewood and to inmates at Holmesburg State Prison in Pennsylvania, holding the chemical in place with adhesive tape to force absorption into the bloodstream. The Department of Defense had transitioned from acting as a financial shield for the CIA to actively exposing human subjects to severe, unpredictable physiological trauma. The CIA's reliance on cutouts and absolute secrecy eventually created a fatal operational flaw. By heavily compartmentalizing the research, the agency's leadership lost control of how the experiments were actually being conducted in the field. The most extreme example of this failure involved the Bureau of Narcotics. The CIA used Bureau personnel as operatives to surreptitiously slip LSD into the drinks of completely unwitting citizens in public social settings. Because the narcotics agents were working completely alone as a cutout, the CIA had no way to regulate the testing. They couldn't verify the dosages administered, they couldn't provide medical follow-ups, and they had no mechanisms to rein in operatives acting on their own authority. Realizing the immense liability of what they had built, the agency panicked. In January 1973, acting on verbal orders from CIA Director Richard Helms, Dr. Sidney Gottlieb systematically destroyed the vast majority of the MKUltra operational records. But the financial paper trail, the very cutout system designed to protect them, partially survived. Those remaining boxes of financial documents eventually triggered explosive Senate hearings in 1977 and a massive 1994 General Accounting Office report, dragging the ghost network into the light. This system was meticulously designed to prioritize deniability over oversight, a structure that allowed the intelligence community to target the very citizens it was established to defend.
I hope you liked this video. Subscribe to our channel for more videos like this.